Welcome to Markets Today. I'm your host, Mbithe Mwema. Today is Wednesday, 29th of April, the year 2020. A lot of things are happening this morning. First and foremost, Safaricom, which is Kenya's largest corporate, by earnings as well as profitability, announced its full year numbers for the year that ended in March 2020. I'll be giving you a quick recap of this as we continue with the show. Over and above that, we are expecting the MPC to meet today, that is the Central Bank of Kenya Monetary Policy Committee meeting. There will be a notification on the decision taken by Central Bank of Kenya at the end of the day. That's at about 4. We are expecting maybe no reaction to the interest rate or maybe a slight reduction as Central Bank of Kenya tries to use its monetary policy to be able to spur economic growth post-COVID. As we speak, IMF, or rather the World Bank, is also having an economic overview of Kenya and what its expectations are. They have revised downwards their expectations of GDP growth to 1.5%. I'll be giving you details of this as we continue with the show. Safaricom did announce its numbers, and there was a lot of growth in these numbers. We saw profit after tax grow 14.5% to 74 billion shillings. I'm not too sure who was able to write 74 billion shillings or who has ever seen or imagined such a figure. That just tells you that this is a dominant company and it's doing a lot in this economy, and it's able to still return a worthwhile return in the double-digit growth element. Were these numbers expected? Yes, they were. So they're certainly very good numbers. The key drivers were a couple of things. M-Pesa was a third of the revenue generation for this company. 33.3% of the revenues were affiliated to M-Pesa. Voice was about 34.5% in terms of its contribution to revenue, and then data followed as well as fixed data to the house. Some key things that we were able to read from this information. For one, the COVID impact had, the COVID season has had a negative impact for M-Pesa revenues. In March alone, the management attributed a loss of about 650 million shillings worth of revenues that were lost in that month alone. Recall Safaricom earlier on, when COVID started, did say that it will not be charging for transfers of below 1,000 shillings. So this has actually cost this company 650 million shillings. The company also lost out in revenues to do with the betting sector. And it did say that if it was not for COVID and the lack of revenues from the gaming sector, and this is the bets that we used to place, or that the economy used to place earlier on, then revenue would have actually grown 5.9% as opposed to the 4.8% that we saw, which brought the total revenue to 251 billion shillings. Now, we do have very good numbers in terms of the top line revenue from M-Pesa and from data growing. And there's also been a lot of potential from data, especially in the home, as people have been working from home. So there was good improvement there. The management team expects data largely to be the key driver for growth in the next year. And they're also looking for alternative use cases for M-Pesa to drive growth. Now, these numbers are good, but I did analyze and I saw a couple of risk factors. Look here. The earnings before tax, which is the key parameter and guidance that Safaricom gives, was up 13.5% to 101 billion. But if you actually look at the financials and go a line before that, and you look at the earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation, the number was not so rosy. It was actually 8.3% growth. In other words, what Safaricom did for the year, it spent slightly less on capital expenditure compared to the year before. That was 36 billion. And over and above that, its depreciation and amortization cost was slightly lower, helping to deliver a good and healthy bottom line. What I'm saying in sum is, because of the review of the depreciation policy and also the review of how it has been applying it over time, Safaricom was able to deliver savings of about 2.3 billion on its cost of depreciation. This, as well as a reduction in other operational costs, was able to now bolster the bottom line, which is what you have seen at 14.5 percentage growth points. So the issue here is you have the revenue, which is what is driving the performance of this company, growing at 4.8%, yet you have the bottom line growing at 14.5%. Will this be replicated next year? Possibly. I did have a conversation earlier on with a chief finance officer as well as analyst to understand what their views were. So recall, I've just said that the revenue was up, but not by as high a margin as the bottom line. What that leaves you with is this a company that is managing its profitability by managing its cost, or is there an opportunity for revenue growth? Yes and no in terms of how you look at the future outlook. COVID will certainly impact some of the revenue lines such as M-Pesa and voice, but Safaricom is scaling up its data product to be able to mitigate these losses, so at least that line is stable. The only concern that I actually have is on the middle line in terms of depreciation and amortization and whether this gain will be replicated. Now, last week, Parliament, through the tax amendment bill, came up with a new raft of measures in as far as investment and capital allowances are concerned. It reduced the applicable measures that were allowed to companies. And this could, so one way or another, affect Safaricom, which spends a lot of its money in procurement of technological equipment to be able to facilitate its services. I did ask the Chief Finance Officer, Mr. Satish Kamath, what he thinks about this. And he said this will not necessarily have a negative impact, and he continues to be very positive about the outlook of the company. In sum, these are good numbers. There will be a bit of volatility given what is happening on COVID, but we do expect that Safaricom could possibly continue to be able to deliver at least double-digit numbers in the medium term. When you come to the stock exchange, yesterday it closed at 27.7 shillings per share. The company has also issued a final dividend of 1.4 shillings per share, bringing the dividend yield to 5.1 percentage points. Sentiment on the market remains neutral, and we don't expect to see any downside, but the analyst community believes that at this price level, it's fairly priced. In other words, if you are a holder of it, keep holding. If you're not a holder, maybe wait to see if it comes at a lower price so that you're not buying a stock that is fully valued. After the break, I will be presenting our conversation with the head of finance, that's the Chief Finance Officer of Safaricom, Mr. Satish Kamath. We had a question and answer session with him, just asking him to help us understand these particular numbers. After that, we also were able to speak to Mrs. Tracy Kivunyu-Mose, who is an analyst at Telema, looking at telecoms in Africa as well as in other emerging markets. And she was able to give us her views on this. So the first segment is a video call. The next segment is a voice call. And if you want more information on this, I would suggest that you look out our Metropole page, where we'll be able to upload the financial filings from Safaricom as well as the investor presentation. Do enjoy the rest of the show, and this is what I need you to be able to take out. It was a good year for Safaricom. 14% is what they made in terms of growth to 14.5% is the growth that they were able to report, and they were able to also acquire the M-Pesa brand. The M-Pesa brand now is in Kenya. The servers are in Kenya. There's a new CEO in Safaricom, a Kenyan as well, who's very optimistic about the opportunity. And we will be possibly seeing new products for this telecom company in the lines of artificial intelligence as we look to enhance the use of technology post-COVID. This is certainly one of the best news that we've had in the time of the COVID pandemic, and we see a bit more resilience on this company. We await to see what the banks will be reporting as they start the first quarter earnings season. Do enjoy the show. Let me know if you have any questions or any comments in as far as Safaricom results are concerned, and hit me up on Metropole TV, that's on Twitter, or you can also directly contact me as on Bithe Mwema on Twitter as well. Enjoy the rest of the show and good day.